So, before we continue and adding new things to this, let's go and check a little bit our architecture. And what I will want to do right now is to actually change the architecture and how we handle states. The reason for that is, as you can see, we're already starting to get a little bit too complicated for my taste, and especially for a game that is as simple as this, well, okay, it's not that simple, but yeah, it doesn't have to be either that this complicated as well. Okay, so you can consider this a refactor, I guess, but it's not really entirely a new thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm first going to go on to my scripts and I'm going to create a new folder, or actually let's create an entirely new folder for this, which is going to be underscore scripts. Okay, then I'm going to create another folder which I'm going to say state machine. So for the state machine, I'm going to create a script called state manager. This is going to be similar to the component state machine, if you have seen this. Okay, so I'm going to add this under a namespace for Sarpaxen, maybe let's say Sarpaxen 2. Okay, so because I don't really want them to be, I don't really want them to have the same, to be under the same namespace, because it's going to ruin a few things. So the state manager is going to be handling states. Okay, but it's going to be different from the state manager we were doing on the other state machine, on the finite state machine, especially with the init and all that. We're going to handle that via components, so it's going to be much simpler. Okay, we do need start and update, but first we also need to add states to this. So everything that has to do with the old scripts, you can forget them for now. We're just going to create some new ones. I'm going to create a new script which I'm going to call state, and it's going to be under state Sarpaxen 2. Okay, and this is still going to be a mono behavior, but we're going to remove some of this stuff we have here. So what we need in this case is, we don't want the programmers or whoever is using this to actually use this class itself. We want them to take instances of the state class, so we can handle any logic we need from that. Okay, so this will now have an abstract class, and we do want to have a method that is going to be similar for all cases of the state. So we're going to create, for now, just an abstract void. We can also pass the delta time from here, so we're only using one delta time. Okay, so this will be the base for our abstract class. Let's go back to our state manager, and we're going to start writing the code that is going to handle this. First of all, we do need two, let's make them serialized fields, two states, which the first one will be the current state we're in. We will also need another state, which is going to be the default state, which is the state where, if everything, well, we can reset our state manager, so it will always fall back to this state. Now, on update, things are going to be pretty simple. If current state is not null, then execute or tick the current state, and just pass our delta time. And we can handle it inside our state. We can handle variables and stuff like that. So this will stay lightweight. We won't have a lot of, we won't even keep variables here unless we have to, unless we need to have some stats and stuff like that. Okay, so with all said, with all this, let's do a public void change state. So we're going to be using this method to add and switch into states and so on. Okay, now we can do a check for if current state, which is the previous state, if it's not null, you can do on exit logic here. Then current state equals target state, and just in case you assign a null state, we can say if current state is not null, then current state dot, we don't have on ender logic yet, we're going to have in the future, so we're just going to say on ender logic. Okay, and we can have a simple method in case we have agnostic states, which we don't really care where they end, we just want them to go back to the default. You can just say back to default state. Okay, change state, default state. Now, so far this is almost identical to, and actually let's just say back to default state in here, inside start. So yeah, so far this is identical to what we had onto the component state machine videos. Okay, so I'm going to start closing this and keep only the new values we need. So we have a state and we have a state machine, the state manager. We're going to be handling then any logic we have through the state manager. Okay, so I'm going to create a new folder which I'm going to call states. Inside my states, I'm going to create a new class which I'm going to say player locomotion. Okay, that's all we need. Player locomotion. Anything that has to do with the player moving around, interacting, and not actually when they're interacting, prompting for the player to interact, and so on, it's going to be handled through this state alone. So that means if we put side by side now the old values we have, for example, let's say open this up and let's bring this onto a vertical tab group. So because this is going to be responsible, it's going to be the only state that is going to be responsible for moving around the player and basically doing all of this, maybe not is interacting, we will see. Then we're going to add all these variables that we need, we're going to add them here. So we can just take most of this and yeah, okay, let's take all of this. Now, we don't need vertical, we don't need horizontal to be public, and maybe they don't even need to be inside the scope of the class, it can just be inside the scope of the method. We will see. Same with move amount and same with move direction. We'll see how it goes, maybe we'll change that, maybe we won't. I think we might not need is interacting and has direction on this as well. So let's just keep only the things we need. Okay, so we are going to need the input handler because we would like to use inputs, of course. So let's find our input. Let's see. This will be under here. Okay. Instead of keeping this as a state action, we can just keep it inside the same state. So I'm going to make a method for handle input. Okay, and obviously this is going to be inside our tick. So I'm going to copy all of this, paste this in here, and with holding Alt down, I can select all of the player states and just delete them. Now, we already have a few missing things. For example, this can go away. And the move amount now, we can remove this and this. Okay, so we're now updating the value, the same values we have over here. Now, we need to have another thing. We need to actually have the player states, the camera transform, and so on. So I'm going to copy this entirely and paste this down here. Let's remove what we need, and I think we don't need the input manager anymore. We can close this. Let's bring this back onto the same tab, and then later we'll fix this. So let's start deleting the things we don't need. As you can see, oops, right away we do need the public, a method for adding the camera transfer. For right now, I'm just going to do public transfer camera transform. Okay, just to go along with this. The scale vector for this, I believe, I think we just had say, okay. So let's copy that. Okay, then this can go, and this can go, as well as this. Okay, so this will be our input pretty much. So we have our input, and it's updating in here, which means next all we have to do is add the action that moves the player, and that will be in here. Let's copy the tank controls and the camera oriented controls. Then on our player locomotion, we can just paste this down here. So as you can see, we all have player states, so I'm going to actually copy this, and I'm going to do a replace, and let's see, find a replace, quick find, player states, oops, no, we want find a replace, quick replace, player states dot, and replace it with nothing. Okay, that's not going to work. Oh, come on. Replace all. Okay, now we're missing a few things. For example, we are missing the M transform, which is the base transform for this. And we can set this up. It's basically a shortcut, which is for optimization reasons. Okay, I'm just going to do for now M transform if is null. Just assign the transform you have. Okay, delta time, we're just going to keep the delta either here, or you know what, we can just pass them from here. Delta, and we are missing a few other things. For example, we are missing the animator. Let's replace some of this, and we are missing the agent. Okay, for both of these, since these are references, we can do two things. We could either have a header here, or we can keep them in here. For example, we do need Unity engine.ai, and then here we can say navmesh agent, and we can also have animator anim. Okay, so this can change to delta. Okay, so we do need, the only things that we're going to need now is the variables, which basically say how fast we're moving or rotating, and so on. So let's generate a few fields for what is missing. Let's create a header for stats, public float rotation speed, and I think the next one will be movement speed. Okay, then rotation camera based orientation speed. Okay, let's assign some values to this. I don't even know which ones I'm going to be using, but we will see. Okay, so this is now our locomotion state, all encapsulated into one thing. Now, of course, we do have our handle input, but we do need to be calling this as well, the the tank controls and the camera oriented controls. And I think maybe we don't even need them to be bools anymore. They can just be methods. Since these are not actions, these are the logic that runs onto your states right now. So it's not really you're going to be going anywhere. You can just add your conditions for initiating a new state or going onto a new state. You can just add your conditions here. So I'm going to say if tank controls is true, then tank controls, pass your delta, else camera oriented controls, pass the delta, and there we go. Okay, so let's set this up. I'm going to duplicate the player states, or my player actually, in this case. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm just going to keep him as a backup. Okay, so let's go here, and let's start deleting a few things. Let's see, the movement speed is 1.5 and rotation speed is 50 and 2. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to keep nav mesh agent, capsule collider, and rigid body as it was. I'm going to need them. And I'm just going to add my state manager, which is the base handler for the state manager, and then I'm going to also add my player locomotion. I will assign the default state because current state will just be assigned on start. So let's set, I think this was 50, and actually no, rotation speed was 50, and this was 1.5, and I think that was even too fast, so I'm just going to set it to 1. Now, we need the agent, we need the camera transform, which it's the main camera, and we also need the animator, which is going to be the base model. So I'm just going to add this and hit play. Okay, and now we have the exact same logic. If we want to disable tank control, we can just by this. Okay, maybe that's too slow. Let's set it to 1.5. Okay, so now we also have tank controls. So yeah, it's the same logic with this. Oops. Going backwards is a little bit off on tank controls, but it could be the controller. Let's see. Yeah, no, we do have an issue with going backwards. Let's see, does it have? No, it doesn't have root motion. Okay. Okay, anyway, so okay, we now have new architecture for this, which makes things much more easier right now. So let's go and say we want to add the aiming. Let's see, we had this as a state action, and as you can see, we changed this. Yeah, so we started having layered actions and layered actions, which it started to get a little bit, you know, a little bit boring. Well, complicated, not boring, of course. Okay, so let's see what we can do about this to change it. First of all, we need to know if you're firing or not, and if you're aiming, obviously. So let's go on to the player movement, and in both tank controls and camera oriented controls, we would like to know if we're first aiming or not. Okay, so no, this is the state action. We can close this. We want the player locomotion. So if is aiming, else just move normally. If you're aiming, we would like you to be able to go and actually, yeah, okay, so let's see. Is aiming, is firing. Okay, so this, I'm going to rename this to aiming input, and I'm going to rename this to fire input. The reason for that is I will also like to keep states in here. Okay, so I'm going to do header states, and yeah, that don't need to be public, to be honest. None of these needs to be public, but I'm going to keep them public for now, just for us to be able to see them from the inspector, that, you know, we are actually pressing things. Same with this. Is aiming, and public bool is firing. So is aiming is different from the aim input, because if not aiming input, if it's not true, then is aiming is going to be false. Okay, now same with this. If is aiming, if aim input, is aiming is going to be true, but you're also going to play, or crossfade, I guess, an animation. And let's see the name of the animation we're going to use. Because I totally forget. Let it compile first. And let's see. Yeah, aiming. Okay, so if you are not aiming, we're going to crossfade back to locomotion. Hit play. And yeah, we do kind of have one small issue. And yeah, we do need this to be get button and not get button down. That's why we're having that issue, that you couldn't hold your aim. Okay, so when I'm aiming, I cannot actually move, because we have branched out of the logic that moves us. If I'm not aiming, then I can go back. However, since we are not updating any values, it shows like him walking around. So here's what we can say. We can say that if you are aiming, then you're going to switch to tank controls as well, which means in here, if you are indeed aiming, we can also pass the delta for the tank controls. We are overwriting the tank controls for this, and we're on the end, we're going to do an automatic aiming system. So I'm not really worried that much about this. Okay. So when I'm moving normally, even if I go and tick my tank controls off, which means here I'm moving based on my camera orientation, when I click to aim, I'm going to start aiming and start moving with tank controls. Okay, and I think if we go over to the interaction point, the camera will still behave the same. Yeah, no, it doesn't behave the same because the camera we have, the trigger, only checks for the player state manager. So if we wanted to change this, we would like to have something that's unique to the player. Of course, that will be the player locomotion. One way will be to check this. Another way will have been to check for Let's add this as 2. And yeah, camera manager needs to be as well too. Let's switch things around. Let's find the camera manager. Say 2. Camera hook, I say 2. Okay. Then we can take the entire folder and move it onto our new scripts folder. Awesome. So yeah, this will now behave the same as before. Let's compile. Let's get out of play mode, however. Let's find a player. Let's rename this to just player. And that should probably work. Yeah, okay. We don't have the interaction just yet, but we're going to in the future. Awesome. So this is for the new way we're going to be handling things, and I prefer this because it's much simpler to start creating AI and doing all these things on top of it. Okay, it's yeah, you know me, I like doing things and keeping things much simpler than if I find a simpler way to do this, then well, I'm going to do it anyway. So okay, we're going in. We have locomotion, we have now aiming, and now on the next one we can actually just add the logic for firing as well. So let's find this, and let's see. It should be onto the aiming, which is this, which we need also the weapon, which also needs a reference to the inventory manager. But here's the nice thing about it. Yeah, okay, no, we're going to need the item, but I'm just going to copy this for now. And I'm going to go onto the player locomotion. Let's collapse everything. And let's paste this in here, and you will see right away we can delete a few things. The player states, for example, it's what we don't need. The eye shootable can come onto our interface. It's our interface, so we can keep it here, which means we can move the entire folder now. We can also move anything under the items, like this. So utility and items can go onto the new scripts folder. Awesome. And back to our player locomotion. We only need a reference to the inventory manager. We can just be a reference here. Public inventory manager. And last fired is just a float. Okay. So handle shooting is if you are firing inside here, if fire input, handle shooting. I don't think we have any delta. No, we don't. Awesome. So this will actually start shooting, yeah, as it should. Then this is going to look for the eye shootable, and if it finds the eye shootable, then it should do the trick. I think, yeah, okay. Yeah, On the inventory manager, we probably need to, yeah, as you can see, this is kinda off. Let's see, we do have 2 player states. This now needs to be, let's set it as player locomotion. Basically, it just gets you, it just parents the weapon. Okay. We do need to call this, however. We do need to call this now. So, what should we do about it? Okay, I'm going to hack it just for now. And I'm going to just say on tick, or you know what? Because these are more behaviors, we can just do this on start. And we can say inventory manager dot load weapon, inventory manager, starting weapon. And this needs to be this. And let's start the target weapon we have. Awesome. So this will load the weapon, and then probably this will actually fire, and we should now be looking at a similar controller to what we had before. Let's fix the error we have here, which is an extra bracket. From what I can see, no, it's a missing bracket, isn't it? Yeah. Then on the enemy state manager, it's missing the interface, and it's missing also the weapon, but we're also not actually using this. So we can just comment this out. And on this now, on the player state manager, we don't have any reference to the inventory manager anymore. So this can go away. Let's see. Yeah, inventory manager. Yeah, so all of this now needs to go away. So let's start commenting things, okay? Okay, so we need a little bit of a setup. We need to have the inventory manager now. And we don't have a weapon. It's set. Yeah. Because this now is corrupted. Because it's a different weapon. Okay, so I'm going to add this. Animator override controller. I think we don't. Do we have one? Yeah, I don't think we have. We added one. Okay, let's just skip that as well. And then for this, player unarmed and pistol. Okay, let's hit play. Okay, yeah, so now we are back to where we were. We don't have the aiming, however, we can see the aiming. And if we close gizmos, you can see that I actually have the weapon onto my hands. So you know what, let's maybe remove the aim. Yeah, let's keep it like this. So he's going to be walking normally, and when you are aiming, he's going to be actually aiming. Okay, let's maybe remove the walk forward as well. And maybe add this here. And idle aim, maybe add that here. Okay. Now we have our weapon, and when we can aim, and when we aim, we actually move aiming. If we don't aim, we actually move normally. Okay, so we still have a lot of way to go, especially everything that has to do with animations. We do need a huge overhaul to them, obviously. We'll see how we're going to do this. Maybe we'll do it over a live stream or something. We will see. Okay, so let's finish this part. We did a lot of changes, even though we're at the similar, or where we are almost exactly where we were before, but with much fewer code. And I think it's going to be much simpler to edit this and keep stacking things up, rather than the old system we had. Okay, so let's finish with this part. As always, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and if you like to see more stuff like this, then consider supporting my Patreon so we can keep making a lot more of these videos. I'll see you on the next one.